welcome back to Primal Pod and Cast, brought to you by the Arc of E Network. My name is Noah, and with me once again, Mr. Mikey Chappell.
Hey, everybody.
And we are back to close out this little three-part run, the epic conclusion of the Colossus trilogy. Season 2, Episode 9 of Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal. That's what we're doing here. You know the drill. Thanks for sticking around for the past... It's 8 weeks. Yeah, no, 8 weeks. We've done 6 episodes. This will be 7 because we combined a few together. They combined a few when they aired. We got one more next week, and then we'll probably just go ahead and do a full-on wrap-up there. So with that in mind, we did a lot of speculation last episode. I feel like a lot of which paid off.
Yep.
This was what I would call a very satisfying end to things. One that ended up not being as emotionally devastating as I feared that it might be, and ended up really just being a good time, honestly. What did you think, sir, overall?
The exact same thing, but I went into it just very much worried for everything, and I feel like those worries were well-founded because
Absolutely.
Everything up to this point has been leading me to believe that no one is safe.
Mm-hmm.
And even stuff in this episode led me to believe no one is safe. But when it ended, I was like, oh, thank God. And
yes,
then,
but also, oh shit,
yes.
I forgot we still got to deal with that. Yeah, okay. So
yeah,
start with a very, very long, kind of extended opening before we get back to the deck. And I'm sitting there going like, dude, like what? Come on, let's just pick right back up where the action happened. But in retrospect, I like this easing us back in, and it ended up being very, very purposeful to focus on how does this massive thing move? Mm-hmm. We've kind of seen it from a distance, just gliding through the water. It's so big. How's this all work? And so just about the time you're starting to realize like, oh, okay, obviously slave ship. Okay.
Yep.
Boom, we're right back on the deck, and it seems like a little bit of time has passed since the end of the last episode. I only say that because the pups, if you will, the T-Rex babies, they're looking a little bit bigger than last episode, and very rough seeing them all chained down, as are all of our heroes. And basically, it's execution time. A few notes because I finally caught up on the wiki, the lovely Primal wiki. This queen is known as Ima or Ima, I-M-A. Okay, so the evil queen, which we learned her name just in time to remove her from the table as a character. So there you go. Also, the guy I've been referring to as Colossus #1 for the past couple of weeks, Kama. Kamau, Kamal, like W. Kamal Bell is how it's spelled. I read his daughter's name and now I can't think of it. Shame on me. But yeah, I don't know where they're getting these names. Maybe they're in the credits and I'm just not paying attention, or I don't know. But they're on the wiki. That's what people are going with. So, yes, but the evil queen Ima has basically demanded the summary execution of everybody that's not her dude. Come on. And he's literally about to, lop off the head of Fang. I was pretty confident in thinking like, this isn't going to happen. This is no, this is not how we're going to start an episode like this. But he goes into the flashback of his origin story and how they were brought into the grasp of the queen, the slaver queen. And nothing that we didn't already know, other than these seemed like kind of a peaceful race of giants for the most part. Like they seemed pretty chill, like they were just having a good time, not like a particularly warlike people or anything.
Just harvesting.
Yeah, just hanging out. And soon enough, some of them are in nets, and there's a whole assault on the village. And we see, of course, what we already knew, but yes, he's capable, and yes, he could take out a lot of these dudes, but he's got something to make him think twice, and that's his daughter, who is the queen, as we've seen, is very, very crafty and took him in. But basically what he realizes in the midst of kind of thinking back to all this is like, well, there's no like, this has been our life the whole time, is under her reign. If I kill them right now, like there's no shot ever. These are the best like fighters we've come across, presumably. And so he does the right thing, the badass thing, and
Yep.
releases Fang. And then we're into an extended action sequence for pretty much the rest of the episode, of a pretty daring and, like I said, very satisfying escape. So any thought, again, we don't have to go beat by beat. Any general thoughts? The only moment I wanted to highlight once we get into the craziness of all of this is uh when he has a moment, Kamal, the giant, grabs his daughter finally. And I love that in the midst of all the chaos, there's this little respite where he takes her down into the bows of the ship, and
Yeah.
they just get to have a little moment together. Presumably the first time they've actually been able to like be in close contact with each other since she's been taken, which we presume at this point, could have been years timeline wise. Like she looks, well, maybe not even that long. She looks about the same age, I suppose, if we're gauging by the kid. But I loved that little beat again in the midst of all of this chaos to bring it home to an emotional point, and then we're right back into the action. But yeah,
Yep. There was a lot of really great screenshots, like of all the episodes I've seen, which is all of them, in fact. There were like the amount of moments that were just like really, really striking animation wise that we got from just like those quick seconds were just really good.
absolutely.
Fang and
Spear.
her, yeah, Fang and her pups, and then Spear and the key.
Yes,
Like,
Spear
yeah,
like literally tearing the cement block out of the deck and then
yep,
swinging it around at people was very
yep,
satisfying. And again, Mira proves to be the most capable and the most kind of cool under pressure. She's the one who spots the key. She's also the
yep.
one who,
Somehow
when
just
one
grabbed
of,
a bow out of nowhere.
yeah, she's crafty, man. She's
Yep.
crafty. But yeah, and she's the one who has the presence of mind when one of the pups gets shot with an arrow to be like, okay, these things are in danger. We need to get out of here. We
Yep.
need to extricate ourselves from this situation. And again, Spear's right there behind her. They kind of jump overboard. Uh, I mean, again, it seems arbitrary to go like bit by bit.
Yeah.
And everybody's seen the episode.
Yeah.
I just want to say when they get down on the little slaver ship, um, one of the ones we saw them fight like a couple episodes back, but Spear goes in, clears out the guards, releases the slaves that are on there, and are they? Excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. When they're in the water, we've set up this great kind of like multi-tiered action sequence now where we have Kama in the bow of the ship realizing, oh, all of my people are still here. They're how this thing's been running this whole time. And we got again, what I thought was arbitrary, but ended up being a great setup of how the ship functions early on. And so we have Mira and Spear and Fang swimming alongside it. And it's like, oh my God, now they're in danger from these giant oars. And of course, the beautiful cross-cutting action, just great storytelling.
Okay.
But just as it seems like all hope is lost, that's right when Kamal basically is able to inspire a full-on like slave revolt in the bow of the ship, and all of them stop rowing. They take out their captors, and then it's pretty much on. They come back up. They overwhelm Ema, and then but just the show knows how to give you a satisfying death, dude.
It's so good.
At first,
good.
at first I thought he was going to just tear her in two.
Yeah.
Like he has her at this angle where he has her by her leg and her torso, and I thought he was just gonna just straight up rip her in half in front of the sunset. But almost more satisfying, no, he chucks her off of this, very similar to the deaths that she has doled out to people from her tower and everything, but throws her overboard through the top of the slave ship that Spear, Mira, and Fang are now on. And that final shot of her just crumpled on the ground. I mean, again, you know, we've talked about our anxiety at some points about reveling in the brutality of the show. This is one of those times where I was like, no,
Yeah.
that was satisfying. That's
Yeah.
how you give a death to a character who we have been this upset by for 3 episodes
Yep.
now. I mean, it was a chef's kiss moment, dude. I was
Yeah.
so on
I
board. And then
was,
the closing moment, but of them looking up at him reunited with his daughter, it was like just a great way to like, but I don't think we'll ever see them again. Like, I think that was the end of that story.
yeah.
Now maybe him and his crew, maybe they run that ship from now on, and maybe somehow down the road, Spear and Fang need an army, and some giants would be some good allies to
Right.
have. So you just
I'd be
keep it
down
in the
for
back
that.
pocket there.
It was
Um,
such a tidy way of wrapping up like this 3-episode sequence,
yes.
while also like not forgetting that there is something else coming, so it's not as episodic as it could be.
And again, kind of like we talked about last episode,
Yeah.
I was like, I think we're gonna wrap this up, and then I think they're gonna be like, don't forget though, and
Yep.
that's exactly what they did. Now, my question to you is, do you think Kamal has any sense of loyalty now, or wants to repay the debt? He sees this giant. From a distance, he sees the giant.
Mhm.
The dead Viking, the reanimated Viking, flame monster, Colossus, whatever we're calling him, just walking across the ocean. Do you think they're gonna go help, or do you think like they're on their own?
I honestly don't know. Part of me, like, I want to believe that they're going to show up at this like last minute, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Battle of Helm's Deep kind of savior thing, but that's like too simple for this show.
I
So,
also wonder if
so
we're going to see the first tribe that Spear spent the most time with.
yeah, that's always a possibility.
The
That
kind of
crossed my mind as well.
other Viking tribe that seemed like they were unrelated to the more warlike ones that he was slaughtering later in the season.
Yeah,
So I
I think there's
still am
gonna.
like, maybe there's
Yeah,
room for them to come in. I don't know, but
I think it's really hard to speculate at this point because I've been so focused on like this one. They're on the ship. They got to get off the ship somehow, and now they're off the ship. And I'm like, oh, I was so focused on them getting off the ship.
I
Uh,
know, and it's like that would have been a satisfying endpoint if we
yeah,
didn't have the lingering,
yeah. And
the Viking coming after him.
the interesting thing is we have time and time again shown that this trio is so good against their fellow man. Like
Mm-hmm.
every single man-made adversity that they come up against, they've somehow defeated and made it out alive, and things are generally good. This is not. So
I
yeah,
don't know how you fight a being entirely made of fire who is not
walking on water.
who is resistant to water. I'm like,
Yeah, right.
I don't know what you do with that.
Yeah, you
I
can't
true
punch your way out of this one, and I'm not sure how they're going to address that.
Yeah, you can't bite your way out of it either. I don't see I don't see Fang just like chowing down on this guy. I am
Yeah,
truly baffled by how they are going to
yeah,
believably take it down, which also makes me think maybe they won't.
yeah. Right.
maybe
Let's. I mean,
maybe
that's
this
always
is
the
the
thing
end
too. This is
of their run. I don't know.
yeah. That's always a possibility too. I mean, like, but I think there is more room to come back for like a little more fantastic experience because this whole season's been a lot more grounded in reality
Absolutely, yeah.
than the last one. But we still have the whole Rage of the Ape Men episode.
That's my thought is like
Yeah,
the only way I could see him fighting him is like, does he have any of that the ape man juice just hanging around
yeah, or
somewhere?
just find some way to do it. I don't know. I honestly, I generally when it comes to shows like this, I'm like always speculating. I'm just like trying so hard to like see if I can be really smart and figure out what they're gonna do. But with this one, I genuinely have no idea. And also, I don't want to because I don't want to like try that hard and ruin the story for myself.
Oh, absolutely.
But either way, I'm super excited and wildly nervous for next week.
Yes, as am I.
Yeah, next week's in like 2 days actually.
Which is pretty much how we ride into all of these episodes. So, but yes, a very satisfying conclusion. I again am consistently impressed by the show's ability to introduce new characters within this world, make us care about them very economically, and like again, we went from I hate that giant guy, he killed one of these babies, to like he's one of my favorite characters in the run of the series at this point. And like we said earlier, maybe we'd like to see him come back at some point. Maybe they've built up a few allies across their journey, as opposed to just a wake of destruction, which they normally do. So
I'm looking forward to some callbacks. I also loved his immediate on the nose transition to giant fighter, because when he's introduced in that like flashback sequence, I'm like, there's something kind of off, and then his eyes squint.
Right.
When, like, you're like, oh, there he is.
Okay.
It's so simple, but it's like eyes of viewer did not notice that until like it happened.
Yeah. Oh,
cool.
Great stuff. I guess we could pause it there, because I really want to talk about Rings of Power with you. I'm very curious what you thought.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I mean, formidable movies, obviously. I did read the books. I wasn't like super hype on them, but I did enjoy the story and the general arc of things. I watched all the episodes kind of all at once, and there's one thing that like pushed me over the edge to, okay, I'm interested, and it was like between every episode going back and just reading the wiki for all the characters, because like the storyline is like I recognize some and I like kind of know where they're going, but then once I got a little more of the background and just the story about the Rings of Power pre-Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, I was like, oh, okay, now I know what to look for. And once I eliminated that barrier to entry, I was kind of all in, especially after this last episode.
I think 3, I mean, I think it has gotten consistently better, but 3 was the one where I was like, oh my God, I'm just so in now. I did.
The first, it was kind of like what we were talking about. I don't know if it was on mic or not, but how you saw why they released 2 at a time. It's like the first one, for me, it drug a little bit, because like the only person I knew was Galadriel and Elrond, and then 2 happened, and I'm like, oh, okay, stuff's happening now. With this last episode, I'm like, all right, I'm on the train.
Yeah,
here we go.
I was talking about this with I think I was talking to Alex. I don't know. I was talking to somebody on the phone about it, and I think part of that first episode is like the period of reintroduction. Like in my head, I was like, I probably, not that it matters story wise, but like I probably should have at least thrown on Fellowship just to get back in the groove, in the headspace, in the world of it all. Because I think that was when I was sitting down to watch the pilot, where I was just kind of like, all right, I don't know. And I think it's just like, I haven't consumed any Lord of the Rings content in a very long time. So yeah, and then I took a little bit of a break. I watched 2 like a few days later, really, really liked it, and was pretty amped for 3. And then 3 had me crying, dude, which I did not expect. Not even from like, oh, we're trying to do tear jerky stuff right here.
Yeah.
The thing that broke me initially was it's just Galadriel and oh my God, Isildur's father. I'm still working on all the names, guys.
Starts with an E.
Yes.
I know that much.
But
that's only because I read it an hour ago. But
they ride out to like, she's chasing after more details on the sigil that she's seen and everything. Eventually realizes it's Mount. But yeah, it's just that slow motion shot of them riding to that location.
Yep.
And it's like a 1.5-minute long sequence. And I was just like, dude, this is gorgeous looking. This is nailing the vibe of just like adventure and wonder and the stuff that like did it for me in the original series so much. And it's also that thing of just like, they're taking it seriously, dude. Like
Yeah.
they put all of this effort into it and they're in it. It's not there's no winking at the camera here or anything. It's like this is
Yep.
what you want out of this shit. That got me. And then the shit with the Harfoots, dude.
Yeah.
At the end
It's
of the
like,
episode, the reading of like all the people they've left behind, the whole like setup of how the caravan works, all that stuff. And then if it's done right, man, I'm always a sucker for friendships being forged like
yeah.
between unlikely people and that like just
Well, that was
how
like the
how
whole premise of the
of the story.
Fellowship, right? Like, and
Exactly. Yeah.
that's why people liked it. I was
Yes,
actually
which is
more
why
interested.
it's
Yeah.
good. Go ahead, go
No,
ahead.
sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was more interested in the show not because of the story that they were trying to tell, but just because of like the production value. Like
Mhm.
if you tell me like this is the most expensive TV show ever made, I'm gonna be like, oh, I got to see what they're spending their money on, and
It's
sparing
on
no
the
expenses.
screen, I
Yeah,
think. I
yeah,
really think
it's
so.
dramatically paying off. They feel really ambitious, but not like they're trying too hard. I guess like it's really well thought out, and
Yes.
the worlds are simple enough to kind of ease your way into, which is nice. Again, like my biggest thing was just not knowing where in the span of time we
I've had
were in relation
I've
to the
had a lot
story.
of questions from
Yeah.
what I mean, and I consider myself a fairly casual fan as well. Like I said, I've
Okay.
read the original trilogy, but I tried to read the Silmarillion when I was in high school, and
Yeah.
that's when I tapped out on the extended world and
Yeah.
appendices, etc.
The wiki breaks it down real nice without
Mhm.
giving away too much, which I thought was really cool. What I think I really needed, like the only thing that was holding me back from really liking it was just time is just such a strong concept because elves are immortal.
Yes.
So when you say it's like X amount of years before the events of Lord of the Rings, I just didn't have a frame of reference for what that meant.
Yeah,
And
and
then with
you're
the
and granted the show is crunching down
yeah,
timeline wise a lot of that because
mm-hmm.
they didn't want to be doing this like, all right, so season one's over and
Yep.
now thousands of years have passed. Remember all those characters you just met that
They're
are
all
like humans
dead.
and dwarves? They're all dead.
Yep.
Here's the two
New
elves that are still
characters. Yeah.
around, and they didn't want to do that. And
Yeah.
I get that. So I'm sure there's going to be some
Yeah.
lore hounds who are very upset by that, but
Yeah.
it is
But
what
at the
it
same
is.
time, it's just like it's supposed to be for everybody. Like
Yes.
you're trying to reach a new audience. Like if this was my first introduction to that whole thing, like if I was somebody that just never heard of or seen Lord of the Rings and I watched these 3 episodes, I would be now kind of interested to see the movies.
Oh,
And I would,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I feel like if I went back and watched the movies retroactively, I would not be disappointed because they somehow are lining up thematically, like with the dialogue and with the way they're shooting the actors and everything. It feels really consistent,
I think
which
it
is,
is an
yeah,
incredibly well written show for the world that it's portraying, if you will. Like
yes,
there are very like there's a lot of flowery language, but then there's
mm-hmm.
these things like every once in a while these themes are these like one liners that will just like kill you because they have so much depth to them and they feel like yeah, this is a Tolkien line that he like stewed
Yep.
over for months or whatever, but it has that quality while managing to differentiate itself from like
Mm-hmm.
a Game of
Yeah,
Thrones or a Wheel of Time or any of these other like it feels like
yeah,
Lord of the Rings. It feels like Tolkien to me.
yeah.
Um that oh gosh, what was I gonna say? Oh, we
Are we
were
allowed to
taught.
speculate
Oh, I
on this?
by all means.
The stranger's
That's
definitely Gandalf, right?
that's what people are saying. So there's a lot of things at play right now that I think are interesting mysteries that like
Yeah.
I didn't think were going to be like engines for the show. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that. But I could see them doing some twisty shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
There are again, I need to do a refresher on this. There's only like 5 wizards, period, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like Gandalf, Sauron,
And 3 others I can't.
who's
Radagast is one,
Radagast is in
and
The
then
Hobbit, and
two
then
other
there's two
ones
more.
that are
Is
both assigned to blue.
yes, But
Yeah.
exactly. So part of me is like, okay, well, clearly, yeah, we're in wizard territory.
Yeah.
It would make the most sense establishing a relationship with what will eventually, they're
Mhm.
essentially one breed of hobbits that will
Yep.
eventually become the hobbits we know. But the Harfoots, it would make sense to like establish that relationship.
Yeah.
But maybe it's Saruman, dude.
That is
Maybe it
also a
is, and
distinct possibility.
maybe it's a different move, and we see maybe
Yeah.
it helps to reframe him as more of a tragic character, which I think was always kind of
Yes.
meant to be. But when you come into him in Lord of the Rings or in Fellowship, rather, it's just kind of like, oh shit, he's really bad. I didn't see this
Yeah.
coming. But it's like you didn't know him, you didn't get him and Gandalf as buddies beforehand.
Mhm.
So that could
Yeah.
be something interesting to play with. The
Yeah.
other
That's
thing
actually a really great
is
idea.
who is Sauron in human form, because he
Yeah.
could be several characters right now.
Yeah.
And that's a lingering thing, of course, that he comes in the fair version of himself. And so I keep hearing that, and I'm like, well, I know like most females watching the show are like, oh, Halbrand, oh my god, this is our dude. And I'm like, well, it would
Mhm.
be perfect if he ends up being fucking Saruman, or
Yeah.
ends up being Sauron rather, and is really evil. But those things are all lingering. But sorry, I
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up earlier. You were talking about the elves and the concept of
Mhm.
time and everything. One of the moments in the second episode that really got me and kind of solidified, like, I think I'm really liking this, was when Elrond goes to see Durin, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
In Khazad-dûm, which we've seen. I love that we've seen the destroyed
Yeah.
version. We have this one version of it in our heads, but then when he
Yeah.
walks in to see all of that like in its former glory, I was like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I was like, I haven't watched Fellowship in like 6 or 7 years, but I was like,
Yeah.
but I know the layout and the geography of this, and
Yeah.
like they're
Mhm.
nailing it. Like, oh my god, this is great.
Yeah.
But they have that moment on the elevator where he kind of reveals, he's like, I had a whole life in the last 80 years. And
Mhm.
for you, it was like 2 seconds or whatever. And he's just
Yeah.
upset that, like, I thought I had a friend and then you just kind of fucking forgot about me.
Yep.
And I thought that was just such a great illustration of the differences and how time is experienced by these different
Yeah.
races and everything, but also how that would be like a point of tension ultimately between the elves and like all of the other
Yeah.
cultures, because it's like, yeah, we all sit here and toil to like keep our civilizations going, and you guys are just here for fucking ever.
Yeah. Right.
Like, yeah, it's
Because
got to be frustrating. Yeah.
it seems to everybody else like that, like the indifference of the elves is its own thing, which is probably why no one likes them. But also, if you're
Right.
immortal, then like these trivial year-to-year problems are not coming
Mm-hmm.
up. It's honestly today what got me was the introduction of Isildur.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm like, oh, young dude, I know exactly what you're going to do, and
Right.
now I have this like nice little frame of reference for what this story is going to tell, which is kind of weird. I don't know. I'm a guy that if I'm bored with a movie, I'll just Wikipedia the plot and
Uh-huh.
just see where it goes, and I'll like spoil the ending for myself, and then I'll just watch the rest of the movie and see how they do it.
That's a very interesting approach. I'm curious some of the
Yeah,
movies you've done that with, uh,
yeah.
for good or worse. But
It's really just movies that again, if it's dragging out, then I just
right.
like want to do it. I think the last one I did it for was Tenet, but that's really just because I didn't understand it and I had to watch it twice
Totally
before
fair.
I figured it out. However, with this one, having that just one character along with reading the wiki, I was like, okay, I'm now compelled. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because you know what's going to happen, and like you see all these relationships forming. And also, I've read a Screen Rant article about the Gandalf theory and how it would explain his, I guess, preference for hobbits in that
Oh yeah.
relationship as like. And then I thought just now, like, oh, that's cool because now there's all these other questions that will get answered potentially by the show that I had about Fellowship and the entirety of like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
apparently we've got it at least guaranteed 5 seasons in which they're going to explore that. So
It's like
I
50
am,
hours of television.
I know, and dude, I like these like, I mean, the episodes are substantial. And I think the other
Yeah.
thing that was very encouraging is you get to episode 3 and we never circle back to Elrond and what's going on
Nope.
with him. We never check in with
Yeah.
Celebrimbor. And I'm like, that is when the world truly starts to feel expansive, is when you get to
Yeah.
those like later, it happens, starts happening in like season 2 of Game of Thrones, but where you have like
Yeah.
a whole episode where you're in like one corner of the map checking in on just like 1 or 2 plot lines. And then it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to get this week. Are we going to find out
Yeah.
what happened? And I like that, because then you can play around with time. You can do the
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, last time we saw them, but here's where they are now. So
Yeah.
that's something I
If
look
it's
forward to them playing
if
around
it's
with.
done well, which I think they've been doing it well so far.
I think they've been
Um,
very well
yeah.
paced, and they've done
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
job of not of choosing what to use as like cross-cutting points and stuff that they will
Yeah.
intermingle, versus like I liked that when we got to the Harfoots this episode, that was
Yeah.
it was like, now it's time for the Harfoot show, like.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that it's segmented. And then of course eventually, I don't know how much that's going to happen this season, but a lot of these threads and these independent stories will start to slowly creep together,
Yeah.
and that's of course what I really look forward to.
Yeah. It's a really good way to tease it. I was nervous when I started episode 3 because it's like what, an hour and 10 minutes,
Yeah, I think it's the
something like
longest thus
that.
far, pretty sure.
Yeah. And I don't feel like my time was wasted.
Not at all.
Yeah,
Not at
right.
all.
I feel there's, because a lot of times with these hour long things, I say this about every show that's an hour long. Like, if you're gonna make me sit and watch for an hour, I want to be entertained for that hour.
Yes.
But right now they have enough threads in place that are all interesting in their own right that I want to see where each one of them goes. So I don't mind having to wait till next week to see what's happening with Elrond, because
Yeah.
hey, I'm like, I've got this other storyline that I can think about now.
How are you finding it? As a compare, not again, everybody's comparing them.
Yeah.
But how are you finding it as a watching experience? Because so you now binge 3 of these and you've been watching House of the Dragon week to week.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, what are you more excited for, Friday or Sunday this week,
Ooh.
based on where you're at with each of these shows?
Yeah. Don't tell my girlfriend, but it's probably Friday. At
Hell
this point.
yeah. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, it's
not that I'm here to hate on House of the Dragon, which I plan on binging
yeah,
basically as soon as October is over.
Yeah. It's a I mean, House of the Dragon is doing its thing, but like I think just it's like one storyline pretty much. You know, you don't have all these options and like a bunch of different characters. Now, granted, House of the Dragon is going exploring the relationship between this one storyline in depth, and interesting things are happening. But I think there's just more interest for me personally in Rings of Power than House of the Dragon. But again, I'm only like 4 episodes in one, 3 episodes in the other, so it can go either way at this point. But
Right.
yeah, but Game of Thrones has had a history of just letting me down hard. So I think that's why I'm a little more tentative on that one.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think like House of the Dragon is okay, and it's only because my expectations were so low to begin with that any decent passable attempt would have just satisfied me in that sense. So I think once I watch episode 5 of both shows, I'll have a more definitive answer.
Fair enough. Well, this week, the day I'm most excited for is actually Thursday, because we get 2 episodes of the start of the final season of Atlanta, season 4. So
Man, I need to keep up on that too. I'm like,
it's gonna be a good weekend. Yeah, if you never finish 3, I recommend binging through. It's still crazy to me that
4.
we got that both of the seasons dropped this year, and then it's just gonna be done. But I look forward to seeing how it all wraps up.
I don't mind termination points in shows if they had a good run.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, we're talking about one of like the 5 best shows in recent television history. So I think it's going to go out on a very strong note. Very excited for that. And I have got to get back on Reservation Dogs, and I've got to finish What We Do in the Shadows as well. Behind on both of those.
Yeah.
But just
So much
finished.
content.
Yes. And in the midst of all of it, just finished season 3 of Breaking Bad once again, because I'm doing my rewatch. So yeah, kicking off season 4 tonight. I think I've officially gotten my girlfriend hooked. We watched 3 in a row last night because it was the final 3 of season 3, which for anybody who's familiar with Breaking Bad, that's kind of one of those stretches where it's like, oh well, I can't not watch the next one. Like I have to. Every episode of that season it's like that, including the finale, but we had to go to bed. So
my problem with Breaking Bad was I just got so hooked that I burnt myself out on it. I just I think it hit. There was I forgot what season it was in. It was the episode with the fly.
Season 3.
Yeah.
Watched that 2 nights ago.
Yeah, he's trying to find the fly, and I'm just like, if I hadn't watched 7 hours of this all day previously, I would have just kept watching the series.
Right.
But I had, and I was tired, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then I just slept on it for a year. And then I went back and rewatched it and just didn't stop until I was finished.
Okay. That fly episode, of course, is very divisive with the fandom.
Yeah.
Shockingly, directed by Rian Johnson, who's no stranger to controversy surrounding franchises that people love. But no, I remember that episode at the time, and I remember subsequently, it's one of those that some people are like, oh yeah, that's easily the worst episode of the show, right? Like it's a bottle episode. It feels like it doesn't connect to anything. And I remember at the time still thinking, I'm like, yes, okay. They 100% did it for budgetary reasons. They needed to save money this season, so they shot one all in this one location. But the fact that they gave it to Rian Johnson, one of my favorite filmmakers, by the way, I'm a huge Last Jedi defender, but that they gave it to him and just let him go nuts with all the different camera setups and stuff that he could do.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, that episode is so important for reestablishing the relationship between Walt and Jesse, reminding us about the Jane of it all from season 2 and where they kind of all stand on that. Like it's a very important episode, even though it doesn't read as such at the time.
Again, I wouldn't have minded it so much if I just hadn't spent my entire Saturday watching Breaking Bad.
No,
I think on a week-to-week basis, I still believe it's one of the greatest shows ever made. But
undeniable, yes.
Yeah, but just having such inundated with myself. Can you imagine watching a play for 7 hours? Even if it's really good, you're gonna need a break at a certain point.
That's true. Just random side note: are you a Twin Peaks guy?
I am not, but my girlfriend is, and I've been told by everybody I need to do it. But again, it's one of those things where if I watch it and I'm gonna like it, and my time is so limited. But 2023, baby. Not in school.
Fair enough. With the entirety of it taken into context, including The Return, season 3, if you will, from a couple of years ago, it's my favorite show. I think it's the best thing ever. My favorite piece of art that I've ever seen. So I highly recommend that you do that at some point, particularly just so you can get to The Return, the 18-hour David Lynch movie from a couple of years ago. But yeah, I feel like you would really dig it. And October is always a good time because it's spooky season.
I'm so excited for it. I put up my Halloween decorations today because my neighbor did. I'm like,
nice. Yeah, dude. As soon as you got an excuse.
Yeah. And it was also 63 degrees up here. So I'm like, yep, it's happening. But it was it's interesting to bring that up because I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks lately while I'm just walking the dog. And that's what I've been getting into. And I was reading or listening to, I guess. Does it still count? I'm going to call it reading. It still counts. I got the information.
Yeah.
Right.
Some
Bob
people
Iger.
are visual learners and some people are auditory.
Some people learners. Just have to listen to information outside while the dog shits. But I was reading Bob Iger's book just because, I'm a huge Disney fan. And I just want to see like what the inner workings of the company are like. Like, what does the CEO of Disney even do?
Right.
And he was just basically going through his career. He started with ABC, and he's the one that fought for the Twin Peaks pilot
Mhm.
because the network wasn't going to put it on with like all these other successful, more mainstream shows, and he's the one that was like, "Huh, maybe we should try this." Which, like, again, he's also in charge of like acquiring Marvel and Pixar and all that stuff. So it was interesting to me that like that guy that eventually would run Disney was the guy that like this clean cut, just white suburban American was the guy that was like, no, we should put Twin Peaks on TV.
Yeah,
Like, we need to pick this up.
dude. Yes, incredible.
Yeah.
I part of me is like, yeah, I kind of miss the like, where are the decisions like that getting made today?
Yeah.
Like, can we can we keep doing that? Can we
Yeah.
keep
There
that
needs to be a
energy?
happy medium though, because like you had Netflix that greenlit everything under the sun,
Yeah.
and then people passing up on other brilliant shows that had to find homes in other places.
Hmm.
Like the cancellation of Brooklyn, the preemptive cancellation of Brooklyn Nine-Nine was what really got me. I'm like, I thought people loved this
My
show.
my biggest like upset casualty, which is so weird because it was like, oh, okay, in today's climate of like anything that's IP related, it's a gold mine, right?
Yep.
The high fidelity series that they did on
Yeah.
Hulu.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And
I
again,
I kind
I
of love
had,
that.
dude, I had my
Yeah.
guard up so hard. I love that movie. I love
Yeah.
that book. And I was like, I don't know, but I gave it a chance because I was like, dude, I love Zoe Kravitz. I like the creative team. It seems like they know what they're doing. Okay. I adored the first season of that show. I thought it
Yeah.
was such a great like reinvestigation of the book and the movie and the
Yeah.
way it swirled them together and still was
Yeah.
its own thing. And I was so excited for like where it was going to go.
Yeah.
And then it just unceremoniously canceled. And that was when I was
Yeah.
like, oh, well, surely somebody will save it though, right? Like,
Yeah.
somebody else will pick it up. Maybe it'll end up on Netflix. And then
Yeah.
it's just gone. It's just gone.
Yeah.
What a bummer, dude. Yeah,
I
no.
know. I do. I remember like that was like one of the first shows I got into like when quarantine was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tiger King came up like right in the middle of it, and then
Yep.
that spiral. Yeah, man, that was what a
That
wild
was a
time for
time.
entertainment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
it was. It feels like forever ago.
Yeah.
It really wasn't in
They
nature.
were
But
no.
did you ever watch AP Bio?
No. No, no, no. I have not.
That was another gem that like had it been allowed to run longer, probably could have developed into something awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
see
love
why.
Howerton. So I need to
Yeah,
check it out
yeah.
at some point. But
Patton Oswald was also a gem too in that one. Yeah, but I think, I mean, it was probably a smarter move because it's one of those things where I'm like, how do people not love this? And I just realized that, oh yeah, you don't have to like everything that I like.
yeah.
So it's always it's hard when you find a show that you feel like was tailor made for you and you love it and you're like, I am the
No.
niche audience.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
My Cobra Kai is the ultimate. Obviously, me and my brother constantly are like, they made it for us, and it's like, well, they actually made it for like millions of people because it's a huge
Yeah.
hit and people love it.
Yeah.
But like, um, the last thing I think that like I felt like every once in a while I have that experience where I'm like, I feel like the writers of this crawled inside my brain, scraped out my own internal thoughts, and then regurgitated it back to me in a way that I could never fully articulate myself, but like they just did it. Did you watch Love, the Netflix series?
Oh yeah, you're
Paul
right.
Rust and Gillian
Yeah,
Jacobs.
that was so good.
That there were so many moments in that where I was just like, this is like uncomfortable how much I feel
Yeah.
where I'm just like, I feel like they've been in my life like a fly on the wall, and then they
Yep.
put it in a TV show, and I was just like, what the fuck? And that happened for 3 seasons with that show, and it ended right when it wanted to and ended
Yeah.
brilliantly and perfectly. But you want to talk about, again, that still felt like at a time when like the Netflix output was somewhat manageable, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. I was like, I like Paul
And they
Rust.
were
I know
also
him
kind of
vaguely. It's
yeah, they
it's
were
an
also kind of
Apatow
crushing it.
related show,
Yeah.
and there wasn't that much other stuff on, and I was an early adopter. I loved it, and it was great. And then I feel like now I'm like, would I even find that show again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, would there be enough word of mouth about it for me to even
Mhm.
know it was out there? Because I
Yeah.
feel like stuff like that would just fall through the cracks. I don't know, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a life changer, one of those
No,
for
I
me
agree.
that I have not rewatched since it ended.
I
Because it
would
was
I would
just
go
such a
back.
perfect experience. But yeah, I'm just talking about it now. I'm like, I
Yeah.
definitely want to rewatch that
Yeah.
show.
That first season was just right up. Like the whole Andy Dick subplot thing where
Oh
just like
yes, dude.
hanging out
All
with Andy Dick.
and to that point, like, where the hell's Paul Russ, dude? Give that same creative team another crack at something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of like, where is it? But
It felt really similar to Crashing on HBO. Did you see that Pete Holmes show?
I've seen bits and pieces. I have not
Yeah.
finished Crashing.
It's got kind of the same vibe in
Mm-hmm.
the sense of like the story moves forward in the same way, but they're both Apatow Productions. So
Gotcha.
obviously it has its touch. Crashing's a little more self-indulgent because it's like
Mm-hmm.
a fictionalized story of Pete Holmes' life, but it hits all the same beats and it's just as funny. So if you're looking to fill a void, that would definitely do it.
I should give it a shot. Gavin is a huge Crashing fan, so
Yeah.
I should give that one a shot. All right, man. I think we'll put a pin in it for this week. But we're enjoying Rings of Power. I haven't started House of the Dragon yet. We're looking forward to the end of Primal. It's gonna be sad to see
Yeah.
it go, but very amped at the same time. And then I don't know, dude. Maybe you and I will we'll have to figure it out. But maybe we just keep this going, but we just transition it into like just a weekly TV check-in bullshit
Oh
session
yeah.
of whatever we're doing.
I'm really
Well,
good at that. And
yeah,
plus I got all this back catalog of stuff I gotta watch. And I go on vacation on Friday. I'll be back on
nice.
Monday. So all 4 days. And then I have a week between classes. And I also have an excess of PTO because I work from home. So I totally forgot that
Nice.
PTO is a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm planning on just doing absolutely nothing when I get back and just watching TV because I haven't done that so long, just like watch TV all day. And I feel like I deserve it. So
You do,
yeah,
sir.
I'm gonna pick and choose all these pilots you've been telling me about and see which one I'm gonna actually explore.
Absolutely. Again, before we wrap, and I know you're caught up on most things, I guess my biggest one, especially since you have a little bit of time to binge, We Own This City on HBO is only 6 episodes, and it is right up there for my show of the year, along with The Bear, which you've already seen. But yeah, We Own the City, absolutely incredible. That would be my number one thing that you should get to.
Sweet.
Yes.
Put on the list. I can start working on that list now.
Dude, so excited.
The Walking Dead is still on it. If that tells you how long the list
It's a pretty old list. That show is
Yeah.
still, in fact, airing, though. I think its final season is still
Why?
in the midst
I
of.
don't know. I haven't seen it, but
AMC's got to keep the lights on somehow, dude. What can I
that
tell you?
makes sense.
There's only like 1 million people watching Better Call Saul, even though it
Yeah.
was one of the best shows of all time.
Yeah.
Okay, until next week for Primal Podcast, I have been Noah.
I'm still Mikey.
And we both thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.